Bum, 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 bum. Hey, we're back. This is Ron Tyler with the Emergency Management Associates, coming to you from the Area Command, 92 miles west of Kitty Hawk Beach, North Carolina. We are late tonight. We were working on a prime story for all of you tonight. We had to get hold of our law enforcement partners over in New York to give you this update about what's going on in New York over at the border with New York and Canada. That's what we're dealing with, the border between New York and Canada. Folks, we have a lot to talk about. We're not going to do the Pledge of Allegiance and the National Anthem tonight. We're going to go right into this story because it is the top story today, and I think ever. Okay? Ever. There's been an explosion in Canada. Actually, in the United States at the Canadian border. I should not say Canada. At the United States border with Canada. It's called the Rainbow Bridge. Today, a vehicle that is now in pieces came speeding through the streets up into the Rainbow Bridge border crossing, smashing into the fence, going over a curb and leaping high into the air and then exploding. Okay? That's the sequence of events. The car went leaping into the air. Then it exploded. Okay? Cars don't do that. Cars don't just leap into the air and explode. Now, folks, the New York governor, Governor Hochul, is claiming that this is not a terrorist act. This vehicle exploded this afternoon at the Rainbow Bridge, prompting authorities to close the border crossing and 3 other crossings between New York and southern Ontario. The vehicle's driver and a passenger were killed in the explosion, and 1 U.S. Customs Border Protection CBP officer were injured. The Rainbow Bridge in Niagara Falls was closed in both directions due to this incident involving this vehicle. Again, Kathy Hochul said there's no evidence that the crash and explosion today on the U.S. side of the border, which connects the U.S. to Canada at Niagara Falls, New York, was a terrorist attack. I'm saying it was. Okay? Regardless of what this governor says, at this point in time, it was. Like I said, the car was seen screaming down the road. One witness said the car was going 100 miles per hour, screaming down the road headed for the border crossing. It smashed into a fence. Then it hit a curb and went flying into the air. Then it exploded. Like I said, cars just don't explode like that. Okay? It just does not happen. The vehicle sped toward the Border Patrol checkpoint on the U.S. side of the bridge. It hit the booth at the curb, exploded, and went airborne. Now, there is no indication that there were explosives found at the scene. However, my sources of law enforcement say that this was a terrorist incident. That's what they're working on right now. They believe it was a terrorist incident. Governor Hochul said at a news conference tonight it was not. The driver and passenger were killed, according to the governor. One of the victims was a Western New York resident. It was a very congested area, a hugely congested area. There is an investigation pending. Like we said, both sides of the road leading to and from the bridge were closed for traffic. A big deal. All the roads were closed. You can see an emergency vehicle and other police vehicles, including New York Fire and Police Department. Okay? Everybody and their dog was there. CBP, Homeland Security, the FBI, all were involved. The Canadian law enforcement authorities are also on scene. They are doing what they can to also make sure that nothing else happens in Canada. Okay? This investigation is going to take a long time. Much of that vehicle was destroyed in the explosion, and debris was scattered over 13 lanes. 13 travel lanes into Canada. 13 booths. Investigators said they ruled out a bomb as a cause, but the possibility of terrorism has yet to be discounted because of the circumstances of the incident that still remain to be determined. Now, one source who was asked to remain anonymous in order to discuss this matter said it's not being ruled out because we really have no idea what happened. We really have no idea what happened. That's a direct quote. U.S. Senate Majority Leader Charles Schumer of New York said, according to the FBI briefing that he received, initial reports indicate that 2 people were killed in the car, but nothing's been determined on their identity or their motive. Well, Chuck Schumer did not have all the details because Mayor Hochul said that one of the people in the vehicle was a resident of New York. Now, they can't find the license plate. There is no license plate to be found right now. Investigators have found some sort of suitcase or briefcase on the scene. They're treating it as a possible explosive device as a precaution, and the bomb squad was handling the package. The Rainbow Bridge has remained closed for the day in the wake of this incident. Ron Reines, who's GM of the Buffalo and Fort Erie Port Bridge Authority, said that all 4 Canadian U.S. bridges over the Niagara River have been closed out of an abundance of caution, while the Rainbow Bridge investigation continues. The Buffalo Niagara International Airport said it will be increasing security with car checks and additional screenings for travelers. Folks, there's a lot more to this than what they're saying. A ton more than what they're saying. I have been a police officer for a lot of years. I've been involved in all kinds of investigations, including bombings and boom booms in vehicles. Okay? We may not know the exact source of that explosion for weeks, maybe months. And even then, the authorities may not tell us the truth about what is going on. President Biden has been briefed on the explosion and is being closely watched following the developments, according to the White House. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau informed the country's parliament that they were looking into the incident. Trudeau said, "We are taking this extraordinary event seriously. We are following up to try to get many answers as rapidly as possible. Additional measures are being contemplated and activated at all border crossings across the country." In Toronto, the police department said it's increasing patrols out of an abundance of caution. New York City Mayor Eric Adams said he's also monitoring the incident. Adams said that New York Police Department has already enhanced security for the Thanksgiving Macy's Parade, so the public will see increased security at locations across New York City, including entry and egress in and out of the city. The explosion is being investigated by agents from the FBI field office in Buffalo. The FBI statement is this: The FBI is coordinating with local, state, and federal law enforcement partners in this investigation. As this situation is very fluid, that's all we can say at this time, unquote. The incident unfolded at a time of heightened security concerns around the world, stemming from the conflict in the Middle East, and at the peak of U.S. holiday travel on the eve of Thanksgiving celebrations. The Buffalo International Airport was closed to all arriving and departing passengers and international flights following this incident, according to the FAA. The Niagara Falls Memorial Medical Center said it evaluated and treated one single patient, the CBP officer, with non-life-threatening injuries related to the incident. That patient has been discharged. Law enforcement sources tell us that the car sped across the bridge plaza, went through a fence, separating the inbound and outbound lanes of traffic toward the inspection area. The vehicle was approaching from the U.S. side of the border. It accelerated. It hit the U.S. side of the border, hit a curb, and went airborne before catching fire and exploding. There is an eyewitness. His name is Mike Gunther. He told a Buffalo television station, WGRZ-TV, he said he and his wife were walking near the bridge when the car traveling from the U.S. side of the border at high speed struck a fence at the crossing and was catapulted into the air before exploding. He was flying over 100 miles per hour, according to Gunther. Gunther and his wife were visiting the United States from Kitchener, Ontario, Canada. He said the vehicle had been fishtailing out of control before it crashed. He said it was a ball of fire, 30 or 40 feet high. He said he'd never seen anything like it before. The car was a luxury sedan. The Rainbow Bridge here that you see, and all three other border crossings along the Niagara River between New York and southern Ontario, the Peace Bridge, the Lewiston-Queenston Bridge, and the Whirlpool Bridge were shut down indefinitely as a precaution. Other international border crossings remain open but at heightened alert status. 3 of the bridges closed after the incident carry vehicles only across the Niagara River between Ontario and New York, and they are among the busiest border crossings in the world. The Whirlpool Bridge carries railroad traffic and vehicles. Security measures have been escalated at airports and railway stations in the region managed by the Niagara Frontier Transit Authority. Security has also been tightened at various locations around New York City. This is obviously a very serious situation. The government of Canada is taking this situation extremely seriously. Public Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc said, "We are in close contact with American authorities. I will be speaking with U.S. Homeland Security Secretary shortly." Border agency officials at the United States had no immediate comment, while their Canadian counterparts did not immediately respond for requests for a comment. But folks, having been involved with this kind of situation in San Diego, I'm going to tell you, because of my expertise in law enforcement, it is my opinion that vehicles do not explode on their own. Vehicles do not hit curbs and fly into the air with flames 30 to 40 feet high. It just does not happen. Okay? My belief is that there was some other provocation for that car to fly into the air and explode like it did. And there's no identifying pieces telling us what kind of car it was other than it was a sedan. There was no license plate. Like I said, this investigation is going to be going on for weeks, if not months. Authorities on both sides of the border are going to try to work together to piece together what has happened here. Piece together literally. That car is spread across 13 inbound lanes of traffic. 13 different booths. That's huge. So it's going to take a long time to pull all those pieces together. They're going to take each individual piece and pull it all into a warehouse and try to literally piece the car together. One, to try to find out whatever kind of car it was. Two, they're going to look at the possibility of it having been tampered with. And three, they're going to bring in dogs to sniff for explosive materials. That probably already is in progress. But folks, like I said, for Kathy Hogle to come out and say there was no explosive involved, she doesn't know what she's talking about. Law enforcement authorities are poring over this situation as we speak. Some of them are being very tight-lipped. My sources are telling us an investigation is in progress, but looking at the entire scene as I have seen it and looking at my experience, guess what? There's something more than speed of the vehicle for it to go flying into the air like it did and then exploding. Vehicles just don't do that. They just don't plain do that. Anyway, I'm going to leave that there like it is. Last night after we went on the air, there was another major earthquake down in the South Pacific area. There was a 7.0 magnitude earthquake near Port Olry, Vanuatu. A 7.0 earthquake that was downgraded to a 6.7 within the hour after it happened. Now, folks, I'm going to tell you this. There's no reason for the downgrade, number one. Number two, there's this. Okay? I'm telling you this. There's also no tsunami warning. There was no tsunami warning, advisory, watch, or threat issued. This was a major earthquake down there in Vanuatu. A major 7.0 magnitude earthquake. And I believe it might have been larger than that. Okay? I'm looking at all the possibilities as we speak. But a 7.0 major earthquake happened near Port Olry, Vanuatu last night. This happened just literally, guys, just literally 11:47 p.m., just before midnight last night. Okay? Now, as soon as I have more information on this, I will be sharing it with you. Okay? I've been looking at this literally all day, off and on. I spent a couple hours, maybe 3 total hours, looking over information about this. Okay? We're going to make another look as soon as we get off the air tonight. Now, something else that we talked about yesterday. Mount UlaWun, over in Papua New Guinea. This volcano has erupted been constantly erupting at one time or another since 1700 AD. Off and on. I've seen this volcano erupt probably 3 or 4 times since we've been covering earthquakes and volcanoes. This is the first time this year. the first time of a major eruption here at Mount UlaWun this year. This was 50,000 feet high, minimum. A 50,000 foot eruption up into the stratosphere. Now, this happened on Monday night. By yesterday, this volcano was waning. It was still erupting, but the eruptive phase had lessened to 16,000 feet high. Ash and particles of ash and rock have been found miles and miles away from the eruptive site. Mount UlaWun is 7,600 plus feet high. Ash has been raining down over miles around the area. The nearest town is a town where they have palm trees, and they recover palm oil from the palm trees. The palm trees, the houses, and the vehicles have ash covering them. Okay? There's been a light ash and it's still falling because this ash is still erupting. This will probably erupt for a while, and we'll keep covering this information in the coming days. But I want to tell you about that. Now, I want to talk about Iceland. Remember we talked about Iceland? We showed you the 3 areas of vulnerability around Grindavik and the outlying areas. This red area that we talked about last night, folks, there is a good possibility that this area may erupt within the next day or two. We're keeping a close eye on this. Scientists texted me this morning saying that the magma is rising. They texted me early this morning saying the magma has been rising. There's been vertical uplift of the ground. So they're monitoring it very closely. If and when it gets up to that eruptive stage or a fissure opens up again, they're going to notify me immediately. And I may come on the air with them to let you know what's going on. But folks, now it's gotten to be really more of an emergency phase over there in Iceland. They believe that there may be a possibility of a real eruption there in the Grindavik area. Now, the surrounding areas, as we have talked about earlier this year, there has been an eruption of 2 different areas. Those eruptions were not violent. Those eruptions were very passive, with just lava fountaining and the lava spreading over a landscape even miles away, filling in valleys. We do not know what is going to happen here. That remains to be seen. But this, folks, may be getting to a phase where it will erupt. And it may erupt outside the city or inside the city. The city was home to 3,800 people that have since been evacuated out of there. Authorities are still around Grindavik. They're watching it and seeing what is going to happen. Police, fire, medical personnel, and geological personnel are all over that area. The rest of the people have been evacuated. They're keeping a close eye on what is happening. The local officials are getting literally hourly updates here in Iceland. The rest of us are going to have to just sit back and be patient to find out what is going to happen here. But this is getting to be major, and we will keep you up to date on this. Now, I want to talk about at least one storm. Yesterday we touched base on this. Okay? We're bringing it up today. I do have an update. Okay? Calling it the Tropics update for this week. Okay? See that area down to the lower left of your slide here. This area was 99L. Invest 99L. It has pretty much dissipated. It's headed over to the Yucatan Peninsula of Central America and southern Mexico. It is almost nothing but a very light storm. They don't expect anything to come of that as it moves towards the Yucatan Peninsula and Central America. This other storm out here in the central Atlantic, it is presently on a northbound mission here. Literally a northbound mission. It is headed northbound towards the Azores. Okay? This could become Tropical Storm Vincent by Friday. Tropical Storm Vincent, or Vince for short. Okay? We're watching this as well. We don't expect anything to happen with this, but it may. We're closing in on the end of the U.S. hurricane season. But last year we had hurricanes up and through, I believe it was the first week of December. So we're going to watch and see what happens. There's really no other large depressions and I'm talking about tropical depressions or anything that will lead us to believe that there's another hurricane or tropical storm coming out of the Atlantic this year. It could happen. We're just going to have to wait it out. Right now we're closing in, like I said, on the end of the hurricane season here in the United States. Okay? Richard Smith says, that's where my high winds and heavy rain is from. Or he's asking the question, is that where my high winds and rain is from? It's a possibility. Okay? It's a possibility. All I'm saying is, here in this part of the Atlantic, I would think that you're not going to see any huge high winds unless it gets closer to the coast. Okay? It's a possibility that you may be seeing some higher winds. I believe those higher winds are coming from that storm that was over Texas and went into Louisiana and Mississippi. That's where I think those high winds that you're seeing are coming from. Okay? I got some of that during the past couple days. We got upwards of 2 inches of rain where I lived here in North Carolina. Okay? So that's what's happening. Does anybody have any questions for me? Does anybody have any questions for me? Okay? Don Patoka says, "'Tis the new normal. Nothing to see here." Move along. Yeah, kind of. But that's not the complete truth, actually. There's a lot going on. Okay? Last week, I was privy to a conversation between a friend of mine and a woman that's now living here in the United States from, well, she had been living down in Palestine and she moved here to the United States legally. Okay, she was not an illegal immigrant. She's here legally. She's an Israeli that had been living in Palestine. Hundreds, if not thousands, of Israelis live in Palestine. It's a land of the Old Testament. And I may Friday on the program show you a map of the Gaza Strip. Judea, that whole area, is biblical, where Christ walked. This woman from Palestine was upset that the Israeli army was bombing the crap out of Palestine. She was upset because I don't think she totally understood what had happened. Meaning that Hamas had attacked Israel. Hamas had gone into tunnels leading into Israel. Israel's now closed down 21 tunnels that the Hamas people had drilled into or dug into to go into Israel. They traveled into Israel on homemade gliders. Each one on a separate glider carrying a machine gun. When they got over the border area, they used machine guns and other artillery from the air and started killing people. When some of those people landed in Israel, as we reported on other programs in the past few weeks, they landed there. They went over to a venue where a rave concert was ongoing, and they shot and killed almost everyone at that rave concert. Young people ranging in age from 14 years old to 20 years old. Young people. I have it on good authority that some friends there from Haifa were shot and killed over there at that concert. They had raised money to be able to afford to go to that concert. Their parents gave them their car to drive to the concert. It was a boy and girl, brothers and sister. They arrived there and they were having a good time. They were shot and killed at the concert. This young woman that a friend of mine interviewed on his own YouTube program was still upset, not quite understanding why her area of Palestine was under siege by Israeli army. The Palestinian people, most are Israeli, being literally driven out of Gaza City, into Egypt and other areas. Driven out. And as these gunmen from Hamas and Hezbollah that are there, the Israeli army is hunting them down like dogs and killing them. Israel is getting tired of being attacked right and left. Iran, for the most part, is funding the operation. But something else that you need to know if you haven't already either heard about it or figured it out. President Biden has been funding Hamas to the tune of $500 million. $500 million. President Biden has also sent Iran several billion dollars. And before that, Obama had sent Iran millions of dollars on a pallet in a plane in the middle of the night. So, the United States of America, who has an ally in Israel? We have been supporting Israel, but in all reality, we've been funding the other side as well. We've been funding Hamas and Iran. Iran has been funding Hezbollah and Yemen and Turkey and Syria. So, Israel has been attacked because these other evil forces have gotten money and arms from the United States. arms in the form of military vehicles and military equipment that we sent to Ukraine to support the Ukrainian war effort against Russia. Ukraine, on the other side, went to the black market and sold these munitions, these vehicles, the military equipment, and sold it to Hamas, Iran, and Hezbollah. So now, Israel and the United States is being attacked by equipment that was once owned by the United States. And not just that. When we were in Afghanistan, President Biden pulled the troops out of Afghanistan and left billions of dollars of equipment on the ground in Afghanistan. Some of that equipment has already made its way north into this area. So folks, it's a sad day in American political history. We're getting attacked by our own money, our own equipment, by evildoers. Now, I don't believe in the Islamic religion. There's a lot of good people in the Islamic world. They're not all shysters and terrorists. There's a lot of very good people in the Islamic world. But there's also a bunch of terrorists. And the United States has been funding them for years. Not just during the past 2 or 3 years, but for years and years before that. It's just been coming to a head now. Now, I don't have any animosity towards most of the Islamic people. My animosity comes as a result of the terrorism that has been ongoing. We've seen terrorism here in the United States. As I said in a previous program, years ago, back in the 90s, there was an attack, a homegrown terrorist attack on the Oklahoma Federal Building in Oklahoma City. There was a guy, an Islamic guy, a terrorist, that was in San Diego taking flying lessons, learning how to fly aircraft. And while he was doing that, he was driving taxi cab for Yellow Cab. And I don't think Yellow Cab even realized it. But this guy was trying to get on military bases using his cab, trying to get on the military base to pick up passengers. Well, at that same time period, like I said, the military and government agencies had put these great big highway barricades in a serpentine fashion. So any cars that tried to come into the military base had to wind through this serpentine to get to the base. And at the entrance to the base, there were 2 Navy police sentries, both of them heavily armed, 9mm and I believe M16s or something like that. I don't remember, it's been too long ago. But these were highly qualified military police. And this guy, this Islamic terrorist driving this cab, blew the sentry at the entrance to the base. The sentries notified us. We came in there and caught the guy. We impounded his taxi. I wrote him a federal magistrate citation, meaning he had to appear before a federal court judge, a federal court district judge in San Diego, and explain why he ran the base entrance, why he ran the gate. I arrested him, wrote him a citation, and sent him out on his feet to whatever destination he wanted to go. But he had to appear. We knew his address where he was living too. Since he was working for Yellow Cab, he had to identify where he was living, who he was working for, who his boss was, telephone numbers, etc., etc. So we knew who he was. And I issued him a federal magistrate citation to appear in court, which he did. He had to pay a huge fine for running the base. He had to pay a huge fine for what he did. And he had to pay court costs. Like I said, he was studying to be an aircraft pilot. Later, during 9/11, when they identified the terrorists who were flying those planes on 9/11, I recognized the name of one of them. I had moved to Denver, Colorado at the time, but I kept a file of every arrest I made, every ticket that I wrote. I kept a file for years. And I went through my files that night. And I went through the files and found his name. I called the FBI office. I turned that file over to the FBI. Yes, it was the same man. Now, what can you do about that? I'm hoping in the future that our law enforcement can prevent that from ever happening again. But again, we do not know, allegedly, who these two people were in the car that tried to bulldoze their way into Canada. I don't think that they had any intention of going into Canada. Their whole intention was to make known who they were and to create an incident at the Canadian-United States border. We don't know who they are. I have a feeling that the authorities at the higher levels of government, meaning the FBI, Customs and Border Patrol, and Homeland Security, know who they are right now. If, as Governor Hochul says, one resident is from New York, they know who they are. I would hope that we could prevent anything like this from ever happening again. Unfortunately, it keeps happening. Our United States President has allowed our southern border to be opened up and allow everyone that wants to come on into this country. Mr. Biden has allowed them entrance into this country. I believe we have terrorist sleeper cells now that are formed here in the United States. I think they were formed even before that. But now we've had time period for all these other terrorists to come into the United States. We have only apprehended 1/10 of the number of people that have actually made their way into the United States. I have no problem with legal immigration. I don't have one problem whatsoever. I do, however, have a huge problem with these illegals coming in and causing problems in our own country. We're seeing protests around the United States. Even protests that are going to happen tonight here in North Carolina, ongoing into New York at the Thanksgiving parade tomorrow. I expect terrorists to be on the outside of it, and protesters. So they will have airtime giving them publicity for what they're doing. I hope that won't be the case. I hope when I tune in to the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in the morning at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, on NBC, by the way, I hope when I tune into the parade that there won't be any incidents like this tomorrow to interrupt our Thanksgiving attitude with gratitude. That's what I hope we'll have, an attitude with gratitude. That's my hope for everybody. Canada last month had their Thanksgiving. It proceeded, I don't think, without any kind of incident. I think without any kind of incident. Already our Thanksgiving has been marred by what has happened. I hope that does not continue. Now, I want to wish you all a happy Thanksgiving. In doing so, I have found something that I think might interest you. My friend Mark Pyers has posted something here that I think you might be interested in seeing. Let me take this out of there. Okay, let you see this.
On this day, November 22nd, 1963, President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in an open vehicle in Dallas, Texas. The conspiracy theories never stopped, and the truth has never really come to light. Notable birthdays on November 22nd, Oscar Pistorius, South African athlete. Shouldn't that say murderer? I don't know. Scarlett Johansson, Mark Ruffalo, Terry Gilliam, and Charles de Gaulle, former president of France. In 1995, Toy Story, the first computer-generated animated feature film, was released to critical acclaim. The rest is history. On November 22nd, 1986, Iron Mike Tyson, at 20 years old, became the youngest heavyweight champion in boxing history. On this day in 1718, Blackbeard was killed off the coast of North Carolina. I hope you enjoyed today's history. Leave a comment after and share. I will be back tomorrow with another episode. Until then, I'm live every single night after 10 p.m. on YouTube. It's the Mark Inspire Show, live songwriting, live comedy, and just tons of positivity. Subscribe, turn on all notifications, and I hope to see you live sometime.
That was Mark Pyers. I've been a friend of Mark's for years now. I really enjoy his work. I watch him whenever I can. I would urge each of you to tune into his show. He's now approaching 8,000 shows in the past 4.5 years. I believe it's now 12 shows from being 8,000 shows that he's done. Daily. Every evening, I think it starts at about 10:30, 11 o'clock in the evening. I encourage each of you to do that. I want to show this to you because today, in history, an American president was again assassinated by a terrorist. A terrorist that was groomed by a foreign power. Probably also related to the CIA. We will never know exactly what happened, except on November 22nd, 1963 in the Daley Plaza in Texas. President John F. Kennedy was killed by an assassin's bullet. I know where I was. Most people here in the United States do know where they were and what they were doing on November 22nd, 1963. Brothers and sisters, it is my prayer that we will never, never forget where we've come from. Never forget our history unless we want to relive it. May God bless you this Thanksgiving season. I love you. I care about each one of you. I hope you have a very happy Thanksgiving. I have another program that I want to share with you. We spent several days, about 13 hours time period, putting this presentation together for you. So I hope you enjoy it. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. We will see you again tomorrow. Enjoy your evening. God bless you. Be safe. We will see you on the other side. Hello, this is Ron Tyler of Emergency Management Associates. We want to wish you and your family a very, very happy Thanksgiving time. Forever. Living in Thanksgiving daily is a habit that will enrich our lives and the lives of those we love. Showing gratitude is one of the simplest yet most powerful things. Gratitude is a mark of a noble soul and a refined character. We like to be around those who are grateful. They tend to brighten all of us and all those around us. They make others feel better about themselves. They tend to be more humble and joyful and more likable. I hope you all have a very, very happy Thanksgiving. Be sure to give thanks to the Lord and also thank those of us around you who love and appreciate you as well, and you, all of us. God bless us all. Thank the Lord, our God, in all things.